Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. So I'm going to do a long review of a book that I have read. This is the book, Bill Bryson, A Walk in the Woods. It has very good reviews, like check in the back. And I admit that I had great expectations. uh, but some things disappointed me, some things didn't. It's really, let's just say, um, the kind of book that will make you have mixed feelings. So, uh, I've been taking some notes, and a lot of notes are about the funny things that Bill said in his book. I've also had some signs with some of my favorite quotes. Hopefully, we will have time to go through all of them. So, let's begin. So, Bill Bryson, he is an American British author, journalist. You can Google him. I won't get into the story. So, the book was supposed to be the story of a great adventure in the Appalachian Trail in the USA. And it's a long one. It's one of the longest trails in the USA. And a lot of people have managed to do this trail. And it was something that he really wanted to do. So it's one of the wildest places there. And I must tell you that I was a bit shocked by the end of the book. Spoiler alert, Bill didn't complete all of the trail. And he did this journey with Stephen Katz, one of his friends, but when he wanted to do the trip, he made a big announcement. He tried to connect with friends, with anyone, so he wouldn't have to go alone. And only this one guy replied, Stephen, that he hasn't seen for 25 years. And yeah, that was his best hope. But I must tell you that both of these guys were seriously unfit. So it was the recipe for disaster. Of course, that I expected in a way for that Hollywood story where two people who are a bit overweight go on a hike, spend 6 months on a hike, and return victorious and slim and fit. This didn't happen in this book. So, first I will go through some of the notes I have taken. So, this is the Appalachian Trail. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Is among the longest footpaths in the world. It's from Georgia to Maine, and it's covering 2,100 miles. There are a lot of stories about how many miles it's covering. Okay, I won't go into that. It takes about 5 months and 5 million steps to walk the trail from end to end. So this is a long project. So I was a bit shocked to see that Bill had this idea, like waking up in one morning without preparing too much and deciding, okay, I'm just gonna go on this trail, and yeah, with no preparation, with nada. Pretty brave, I must say. It So Bill talks about the dangers along this trail. There are a lot of black bears, but they rarely attack, but when they do, it's usually the first and the last time. Okay. Um, so at the beginning of the book, Bill says how he has written to a lot of people hoping to find a partner in misery for this trip, but it didn't happen. So Stephen called to say that he thought that Bill will say no because Stephen had a debt of $600 that he didn't pay back to Bill. But Bill was so desperate to find a hiking buddy that he said, okay, forget about a debt. I don't care. As long as someone is coming along with me, that's okay. Um, yeah. So when Bill meets Stephen, like he hasn't seen this guy for 25 years, he's a bit shocked because Stephen is seriously overweight. he he's hungry for donuts. He's a couch potato basically. So tackling one of the most difficult trails in such a condition wouldn't be ideal, right? But well, when someone is desperate, so Bill goes on a bit of a history of the trail. So um, it's a talk about who is the real founder of this trail, McKay or Myron Avery. The AT, so I'll call it AT, Appalachian Trail, so I wouldn't have to pronounce it. The AT was completed on 14th of August 1937. It gathered no press attention whatsoever. So it was quite a big accomplishment for that time, but nobody gave a damn. So it was pretty much overlooked. It's the largest volunteer run undertaking on the planet. Yeah, so basically, volunteers are taking care of it. I mean, at least they try. Yeah. Okay, so the journey begins, and there are a lot of funny things that happen along the trail. Like, for example, at the beginning, Stephen is like, he throws away things from the backpack, and including the coffee filters. So the first coffee that the guys have, it's with toilet paper because Stephen uses toilet paper as coffee filter. um, uh, so the book, um, it's a mix. It's not a complete travel book. It's not a journal. It's not a memoir. It's because it's also filled with facts. Bill is very savvy and he knows a lot of things about history, about nature, about plants, and he also talks about the deforestation and the private interest in timber exploitation. And it's happening. It's happening a lot, unfortunately. They come across other hikers, including one lady called um, Mary Allen, who is obnoxious for the guys. And they actually do one thing that I was a bit, yeah, it was not okay what they did. They got so tired of her that they pretty much abandoned her in the forest. But it was like, okay, we just came across her. We have no personal responsibility towards her. But I mean, I can understand from what you're gonna read in the book, you're gonna see she's pretty annoying. But I was a bit like, okay, was it ethical what they did? They did feel bad afterwards. The lady survived. She didn't go to complete the AT, but nevertheless, it was a bit of an ethical challenge, I would say. Okay. So now I'm just reading the notes that I have taken, and after that, I will try to uh, see exactly like see. Okay, I was checking if this is working. I was trying to see. I will try to go through the book and see exactly what quotes I really liked. But first, I'm gonna go quickly through my notes. Um, so I was amazed to find out that in this magical place, AT, surrounded by mountains and a lot of wildlife, I was impressed to find out a lot of interesting details about the variety of plants in the Smokies. There are 130 native species of trees only in the area of the Smokies, and as a comparison, Europe has 85, the entire Europe. Okay, let that sink in. There are 25 varieties of salamander, more than anywhere else on Earth, and unfortunately, over 90% of Fraser fir are sick or dying, and nobody's doing anything about it. So you see, there are like two parts in this book. On one side, Bill appreciates everything that is in there, but he also presents us the less pretty um, situation of the AT and the partial neglect from authorities that do not do anything about some things that are affecting this area. And on the other side, you can read amazing, interesting things. So this is like, it's a book that it's a bit like of, I wouldn't call it science, but definitely I would call it like very informational. Like I could tell like Bell is a good journalist because there there is this informational side of the book that I really loved actually. Um okay, there is another funny thing that happens with these two guys. They go in the Birch Spring Gap shelter, and that shelter is filled with rodents, like literally climbing on your head. And there's a killing spree, and Stephen feels victorious and like a gladiator because he managed to put an end to some rodent's life pretty quickly. But I must tell you that I gained a new appreciation for the hiking adventure because it's not so romantic. Actually, a lot of people try to romanticize the idea of going into the woods and yeah, sitting like on the fire. And no, a lot of the shelters are really horrible places to be in. Some of the people that manage them, they will rip you off. And it's not so romantic. Like, imagine trying to fall asleep while rodents go in places you wouldn't want to have rodents. So it's not so bohemian, you know? Uh, they end up in one town, Gatlinburg, where they are charged $22 for two burgers and two sodas. They skip the trail between Gatlinburg and Virginia. They take a taxi. So this is like the funny part of the book because like this guy could have lied, could have invented a story, but it's like when they hit rock bottom or it gets too hard or something, they're like, okay, screw it, we're not gonna do this part of the trail. It's like, okay, it's like going to Everest or something, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stop here and take a helicopter to the, if they would go, but helicopter do not, but just for the sake of the idea, I'm telling you, like, okay, I'm just gonna go and take a helicopter to take me there, like, what the heck. I found this like hilarious. I mean, the book will make you laugh a lot. So if you want to laugh a lot while also reading a good book, uh, you will you will enjoy it. Okay. Um, so we get to the origins of the AT. So this trail must have had one person that hiked it for the first time and set a world record that is unattainable. So, who is this guy? In 1948 summer, the summer of this year, Earl B. Schaefer is the first person to hike the AT from end to end in a single summer. Uh, no tent, just road map. 123 days, April to August, 17 miles per day. Woohoo! And when he managed to finish it and he wanted to publish a book and tell his story, he had like, people didn't believe him. Thanks God he had the pictures and everything. His book now is like legendary, and I really want to read that book. Um, it's called Walking with Spring. Yeah, nobody believed he did it. Imagine, just like, I don't know how that guy did it. Literally, I will have to read his book. In 1980, Ward Leonard hiked 80 in 60 days and 16 hours. So it was a bit of a competition afterwards to see, okay, who's hiking this, like, for how long. It's like a manly thing to do. Um, from this, Bill, so this book is like, Bill is gonna tell you how the hike goes, how it fails, and then he will go a bit into history, and then he will go a bit into that. So he jumps like a spider from one topic to another, which definitely it gives like the savor of this book. It's like, yeah, it's a bit of this, it's a bit of that. So he jumps to the botanical aspect, and there are a lot of plants that have been collected from this area, and people made a lot of money back in the days by vandalizing, basically, um, and made a fortune. Made a fortune. And there were also problems because of uh, fungi and different bacteria and different viruses that came along with timber transports from Asia. So Bill talks about the story of the American chestnut that has been decimated by an Asian fungus infected lumber from the Orient. So see, there is a danger when it comes to commerce and just, yeah, the trees, like the trees in a certain area, they're not used to outside pathogens that are like from a different continent. So if one virus ends up in that place, it literally decimates the trees. Yeah. An interesting fact to give you an idea of how much people from USA are walking or not. Every 20 minutes on the AT, Kat and I walked further than the average American walks in a week. That's because a lot of people have cars and everyone got used to just going by car. Um, there's talk about bears. Um, yeah, they came across some hikers that are pretty respectful, but they also come across douchebags. And it happens like they come across a group that one lady's super rude with them. It's like, okay, something like, do I have to sit near you? And with a face of disgust. So Stephen stole the shoelaces from her boots before they left that camp. That was a bit like, it was a bit evil, but it was well deserved because the lady was really obnoxious. um, yeah. So at a certain point, they separate. Bill continues the hike. His wife drives him to certain places where he goes. For example, um, he, Bill in June, Bill decides to go back on the trail. He's driving to Pennsylvania. There's a lot of talk about the coal industry in Pennsylvania. Really interesting fact. And also about the mining industry, about the anthracite. There was a fire in 1850s that burned itself 80 years because anthracite, it's almost impossible to put out. Incredible. It's also another town called Centralia, a very sad place. Very sad place. And there's also a fire that happened in there. Yeah, so there was enough coal under Centralia to burn for 1,000 years. So when a fire like this is happening underground and you cannot put it out, there's a lot of carbon dioxide and a lot of toxic fumes. So it's really not a good place to live in. Yeah. There's a bit of a comparison that Bill makes between a hiking experience he had in Luxembourg with his son versus the AT. So the AT is really rough, raw, a lot of nature. You won't get the posh, pamper you, mani-pedi, uh, croissant and whatever burgers. Like, no, it's rough and it's like you can literally get lost on the AT and die and also get killed because there have been some murders. And I was a bit shocked to read about that because I'm like, who who goes on a very deserted place waiting for tourists and then to just jack them up, you know? And it happens. It happens. It's very dangerous, actually. And there were stories like with hikers that they came across like an inn or a place to eat, and some lunatic was sitting there and followed them back into the woods, and then they were like, and I'm like, creepy, really creepy. But as Bill says it, we are in the USA, so crime in the woods is pretty normal. Ah, very disturbing, I would say. There's a talk about the Eastern Mountain Lion that it's supposed to have disappeared. So Bill talks about a lot of animals that have been hunted for a trophy and people made money, and people were so desperate to make money and hunt them that they that they literally made a lot of species disappear. So I was very disappointed to read about this. And yeah, it's the human nature, unfortunately. Um, Also, birds have been extinct. Birds with beautiful trills gone. Um, okay. There's a talk about Mount Washington that had a record when it comes to wind speed. In 1934, meteorologist Salvatore Pag Paglu Pagliuce, some Italian name, records a wind speed of 231 miles per hour, a record. So you definitely do not want to go on the mountain when winds like this happen. There's a talk about people who died in here, and again, Bill meets again with Stephen. So they go on this hike, planning to conquer the AT. They run short. Then Bill goes again, trying to hike some parts of it. Then he goes back, and now he reunites again with Stephen. So this book is like, it's not like the long AT trail done by these two guys. No, no, it's an on and off trying to do the AT trail. Okay. So Bill meets again with Stephen, who bought 2 yellow newspaper delivery bags to replace the backpacks. I must tell you that Stephen is a bit of, I think, I don't know, he has moments when you might suspect he's not very smart. But I must tell you that towards the end of the book, like this guy, Stephen, had a problem with alcohol, he had a problem with weight, he had a problem with a lot of problems when it comes to just picking the good things in his life. But I must tell you that there's something about Stephen that changes in this journey, but I don't know if it's long lasting. But you can, I think, in a hike, you can definitely notice the human nature and observe it changing somehow. Yeah. So the two of them try to hike, try, they try, okay, they're not hiking completely. They try to hike the woods of northern Maine, the 100-mile wilderness. So it's a very courageous attempt. There's one moment that's happening in here that they get like, somehow Stephen disappears and Bill thinks that Stephen got lost, and it's really unnerving. And yeah, that idea that you can get lost on this trail, it's really scary because nobody's going to come and save you, especially on this portion of the trail, because it's deep in the woods. It's yeah, if you get lost, you're cooked. Like, it's bad. At one point, they decide to stop this. And I was like, in the back of my mind, finally. Finally, because in a way, it was very funny to read their adventure, but on the other way, it was a bit like, for me, it was a bit putting me off the fact that it was so much complaining. They were so unprepared, and being so unprepared, maybe there wasn't so much appreciation for the experience of hiking at a deeper level that I would have expected. So a part of me was really happy that this show got cancelled and they decided to stop it. Stop it because they're not mountain men. And I think this is a good book to read in order to realize that in life it's really also quite important to be able to realize your own limitations, and to see and to assess a situation, not how you would like it to be, but how it is. And yeah, I like this book from this perspective. They get picked up in a truck by two lumberjack men that happen to drive in that area. I don't know. I think even God, the divinity, was like, guys, you're not cut for this. I'm just gonna make two random people drive around your area and just pick you up and save you from the misery of the AT trail. Okay. So yeah, these are my short notes, and now I will go into the quotes. Uh, Bill, I must tell you, Bill is a very talented writer. I really like his style. He has like a lot of humor. Uh, yeah, it's he's a good writer. He's a good writer, and I must tell you that you will enjoy this book. I don't know, maybe just for the pleasure of reading uh, a good piece of writing with a lot of humor. Like Belle is sarcastic, he's funny, he's witty, he's savvy, he is he's like a good champagne after a long day, you know. even if you even if you serve it from a bowl. It's like, yeah, like Bill is the champagne that you drink from a bowl, you know? He's like very interesting. So I'll start with the beginning. It's like they dreamt of this adventure because it would make them look super manly. So when guys in camouflage pants and hunting hats sat around in the Four Aces diner talking about fearsome things done out of doors, I would no longer have to feel such a cupcake. I wanted a little of that swagger that comes with being able to gaze at a far horizon through eyes of chipped granite and say with a slow, manly sniff, yeah, I've shit in the woods. So yeah, for sure Bill did that. Not until the end, but yeah. So and now this is a moment when he started to buy a lot of books about bears, about how to prepare for such a journey. So on the way out, I noticed a volume called Bear Attacks, Their Causes and Avoidance. Opened it up at random, found the sentence. This is a clear example of the general type of incident in which a black bear sees a person and decides to try to kill him and eat him, and toss that into the shopping basket too. Well, for sure, if you want to go on a trip, you definitely want to read all of the scary literature that is available. Black bears rarely attack, but here's the thing, sometimes they do. All bears are agile, cunning, and immensely strong, and they are always hungry. If they want to kill you and eat you, they can, and pretty much whenever they want. That doesn't happen often, but, and here is the absolutely salient point, once would be enough. So see, he's very funny, Bill. He's very funny. So, what on earth would I do if four bears came into my camp? Why, I would die, of course, literally shit myself lifeless. I would blow my sphincter out of my backside like one of those unrolling paper streamers you get at children's parties. I dare say it would even give a merry toot and bleed to a messy death in my sleeping bag. So see, he's hilarious. Like these are the parts that really made this book be like awesome, really, really awesome. The American woods have been unnerving people for 300 years. The inestimably priggish and tiresome Henry David Thoreau thought nature was splendid, splendid indeed, so long as he could stroll to town for cakes and barley wine. So he talks about this guy, and even the most rugged, rough men that are used with the wilderness and with the woods, they get a they get a bit nervous when they come on this trail. This trail is not easy. This trail is wild. This trail will beat you up and spit you down. Like, it's tough. It's really, really tough. Oh, yeah. There's a talk about the scientific forestry, clear cutting. So it's a talk about the deforestation of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And Bill doesn't call it a science, he calls it a rape because a lot of the trees were, it was just a massacre of the trees in order to sell them. So it's happening everywhere, unfortunately. Okay, there's the talk about Mary Ellen, very obnoxious. Yeah. I have long known that it is part of God's plan for me to spend a little time with each of the most stupid people on earth. And Mary Ellen was proof that even in the Appalachian woods I would not be spared. It became evident from the first moment that she was a rarity. Oh, he can be feisty, Belle. Feisty and quite mean. He talks about the experience of distance. It's one of my favorite quotes. So, distance changes utterly when you take the world on foot. A mile becomes a long way, 2 miles literally considerable, 10 miles whopping, 50 miles at the very limits of conception. The world, you realize, is enormous in a way that only you and a small community of fellow hikers know. Planetary scale is your little secret. Life takes you on a neat simplicity too. Time ceases to have any meaning. When it is dark, you go to bed, and when it is light again, you get up. And everything in between is just in between. It's quite wonderful, really. You have no engagements, commitments, obligations, or duties, no special ambitions, and only the smallest, least complicated of wants. You exist in a tranquil tedium, serenely beyond the reach of exasperation, far removed from the heat of strife, as the early explorer and botanist William Bartram put it. All that is required of you is a willingness to trudge. There is no point in hurrying because you are not actually going anywhere. However far or long you plod, you are always in the same place, in the woods. It's where you were yesterday, where you will be tomorrow. The woods in one boundless singularity. I love this quote. I mean, it describes the a bit of the magic of the place. So Bill has this moment when he appreciates he appreciates like the words and what it means and the the way you can feel if you are prepared for the words, physically, mentally, spiritually, I think. Oh, he talks about one hike that um, in the third state in Tennessee. Um, so the AT marks the boundary between North Carolina and Tennessee. I like this very much. The idea of being able to stand with my left foot in one state and my right foot in the other. So yeah, that was a very interesting detail. I'm happy that Bill managed to do that. Okay, so there's a big part of the book covering um, the beautiful diversity of plants and the rich plant life. Smokies are home to 67 varieties of mammal, over 200 types of bird, and 80 species of reptile and amphibian. They are famous for their bears. Um, so a lot of the bears have lost the fear for people because a lot of people are trying to feed them. And I could not believe my eyes when I have read the real story of a woman that was with a baby and she thought it would be cute to feed the bear with honey. But what if she would put honey on the hands of the baby and the bear would come and lick the fingers of the baby? Wouldn't that be so cute? Well, the bear didn't know this and he ate the child's hands. I was like, okay, that's another level of mental inability, to call it mildly. Yeah. So there is one recorded instance of a woman smearing honey on her toddler's fingers so that the bear would lick it off for the video camera. Failing to understand this, the bear ate the baby's hand. This was real story, guys. So no comment, really. This left me like, oh, so much happens in the USA. Oh. So Bill really doesn't like the National Park Service. Uh, I won't go into that, but it's they do not take care of things, claiming that they do not have money. But in the same time, they gave one very lavish party, a 75th anniversary party, and they spent $500,000 on that party. But they said they have no money for treating the dying tree from various diseases or doing things. They have no money, but they do like to party. Yeah, we all know those kind of institutions, don't we? Uh, they have an experience in Gatlinburg where they try to take a taxi and they can just, it's like they call a taxi driver after another taxi driver, and it's like, um, hey, I want you to take me there. And every person on the other side of the phone in this town said, uh, I don't know. And they were asked like, how much will you charge me and how much will it take? And every cab driver was like, I don't know. I don't know. And Bill was exasperated and he said something like super hilarious. I said, I hung up again and looked at Kat. Ethan, his friend, what is it with this town? I've blown more intelligent life into a handkerchief. Oh, this was a good one. A very, very good one. Oh, so this is one moment when one of the multiple moments where like Bill gives up on the hike, and he says like, how did I feel about giving up the quest when a granny in Plimsolls, a human beach ball named Woodrow, and over 3,990 others had made it to Katahdin, while pretty good as a matter of fact. I was still going to hike the Appalachian Trail. I just wasn't going to hike all of it. Kat and I had already walked 500,000 steps, if you can believe it. It didn't seem altogether essential to do the other 4.5 million to get the idea of the thing. I was like, yeah, I get your point. It's like the same thing with, okay, I have eaten once. I don't have to eat every day, so I get the idea of the thing. But yeah, it's difficult. The hike definitely was more difficult than they expected. And I can understand, like, I'm not judging. And I'm telling you, like, it's hilarious. Like, I think this book wouldn't have been so good if they would have made the trail as I would have expected. The book is delicious because they failed and because they gave up and because they took a taxi between states to do the trail. And all of this is like the beauty of the book. Oh, uh, it is such a strange contrast. When you are on the AT, forest is your universe, infinite and entire. It is all you experience day after day. Eventually, it is all about, you can imagine. You are aware, of course, that somewhere over the horizon there are mighty cities, busy factories, crowded freeways, but here in this part of the country where woods drape the landscape for as far as the eye can see, forest rules. Beautiful. Ah, there's a lot of talk, mainly trash talk, about the maps that are being done for the AT trail. They suck. They really, really suck. Like, they're no good. Um, um, Especially those for Pennsylvania. They are small, monochrome, appallingly printed, inadequately keyed, and astoundingly vague, completely useless, comically useless, heartbreakingly useless, dangerously useless. No one should be sent into a wilderness with maps this bad. Yeah, that's not very good. Really not very good. And I'm a bit shocked considering that this is quite a famous trail. You would think that they would update those maps. A bit of talk about Pennsylvania. Eastern Pennsylvania sits on the one of the richest coal beds on Earth. Oh, yeah, so they get back to that. If you remember at the beginning, I told you about the huge fire that happened. And yeah, that fire happened and they weren't able to put it down for 80 years. Wow. By the end of the century, America was producing 300 million tons of coal a year, and a great bulk of it came from Pennsylvania's anthracite belt. Wow, that's impressive. Also talk about the Centralia. which was good town until the fire happened. Oh, another quote. America's attitude to nature is, from all sides, very strange if you ask me. I couldn't help but comparing my experience now with an experience I'd had 3 or 4 years earlier in Luxembourg when I went hiking with my son for a magazine assignment. Luxembourg. It has a lot of woods, but also castles and farms and steepled villages and winding river valleys. Yeah, he had comfort. He could go, and it's like Bill really would have liked a bit of comfort on this trail. And I can see his point. Uh, with restaurant, with nice, like the AT is really rough. You won't get this tourist package. Like you can rarely come across restaurants. Like the shelters you'll be sleeping will be bad. I mean, it's really like, in a way, in my view, it's really nice that I kept it this way because it's really like it's raw. It's like nature sleeping in the woods, sleeping in a tent, like barely showering. And there are talks in the beginning of the book that people that go a bit cuckoo after the 6 months spent on the AT because it's really remote. It's quite isolated. It's it's tough. It's tough. So I can understand why Bill would have wanted the Luxembourg experience, but he was unlucky to get that on the AT trail. Mm, oh, there's talk about the killing of animals happened in Pennsylvania. People that killed a lot of animals until they unfortunately went extinct. Oh, Pennsylvania one year paid out $90,000 in bounties for the killing of 130,000 owls and hawks in order to save the state's farmers a slightly less than whopping $1,800 in estimated livestock losses. So killing animals in order to save farmers from a loss of $2,000 makes no sense. It is not very often, after all, that an owl carries off a cow. Yeah, sad. Really, really sad. My favorite quote, my favorite moment from the entire book. One moment. Uh, Probably, I don't know if it is the moment that made Bill also feel like, wow, but just reading, just reading about this encounter, yeah, I can relate because I have lived a similar moment in the woods, and I can confirm what you will just hear from Belle about that sort of experience in the woods. So it is an encounter with a wild animal. So let me read. Um, while while he finished putting up his tent, he talks about Stephen. I went off to filter water for the morning. Baker Stream was really a river, broad, clear, and shallow, and very beautiful in the glow of a summery evening, with a backdrop of overhanging trees and the last rays of sunlight sparkling its surface. As I knelt by the water, I became curiously aware of something, something in the woods beyond my left shoulder, which caused me to straighten up and peer through the clutter of foliage at the water's edge. Goodness knows what impelled me to look, because I couldn't have heard anything over the musical tumult of water, but there, about 15 feet away in the dusky undergrowth, staring at me with a baleful expression, was a moose, full grown and female, so I presumed since it had no antlers. It had evidently been on its way to the water for a drink when it was brought up short by my presence, and now clearly was undecided what to do next. It is an extraordinary experience to find yourself face to face in the woods with a wild animal that is very much larger than you. You know these things are out there, of course, but you never expect at any particular moment to encounter one, certainly not up close, and this was close enough for me to see the flea-like insects floating in circles about its head. We stared at each other for a good minute, neither of us sure what to do. There was a certain obvious and gratifying tang of adventure in this, but also something much more low-key and elemental, a kind of respectful, mutual acknowledgment that comes with sustained eye contact. Beautiful. So encountering a wild animal in his element in the woods, it's incredible. And if you get eye contact, it's like I've been through that, and it's incredible. You sense awe, you sense appreciation, you feel like you get a glimpse into the majesty and the, I don't know, the miracle of wildlife, and the fact that there's something noble and something to be respected about an animal in the wild, knowing that it's just God's creation, and it's there, and it's not planned, it's not in a zoo, it's like the animal there in your face. I love this moment from the book. I really, really did. So, the end of this book. So we decided to leave the endless trail and stop pretending we were mountain men, because we weren't. At the bottom of Chairback Mountain, 4 miles further on, there was a dirt logging road. We didn't know where it went other than it must go somewhere. Oh my God. We turned to see a cloud of dust heading our way, led by an ancient pickup truck moving at a great speed. As it approached, I instinctively put my thumb out, and to my astonishment, it stopped about 50 feet past us. Yeah, there were two men, dirty from work, loggers. "Where are you going?" asked the driver. "Anywhere," I said. "Anywhere but here." Oh my God. So Bill describes his relationship with the AT trail. I thought for a moment. So Stephen asks him, like, "How do you feel about quitting this?" So, so how, so do you feel bad about leaving the trail? Kat asked after a time. I thought for a moment, unsure. I had come to realize that I didn't have any feelings towards the AT that weren't thoroughly contradictory. I was weary of the trail, but captivated by it, found the endless slog increasingly exhausting, but ever invigorating, grew tired of the boundless woods, but admired their boundlessness, enjoyed the escape from civilization, and ached for its comforts. All of this together, all at once, every moment, on the trail or off. So yeah, Stephen, like his friend is like proud. He says, you know what? I've been through the trail. It doesn't matter how, like if I hiked it, if I took a cab, if like, I don't care. I did this trail. I'm like, yeah, Stephen, you can lie to yourself. But I must tell you, this book is it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It's a piece of really I don't know. Sit by candlelight, sit by the fire with some hot tea and popcorn or something sweet, and just munching on, because this will be a very funny book to read. Um, it is quite like I searched a bit about the author, and he has written tons of books and also like a guide for writers, because I must tell you that I have a long list of words that I have to translate, which is not so common when I read, but this book is filled with posh words, and it's like a really literary language. And I can appreciate it for sure, but boy, did it give me a lot of work. Um, it's really nice. It's really nice, and um, yeah, it's good. It's good, and there's something about the friendship about this in between these two guys happening, and yeah, I mean, hiking can change you, and I like books also about, let's not call it failure, let's just call it experiences that don't go as planned. Experience that don't go as planned, and um it's really nice, and I liked all of the details about the history of the places, about the plants, about the animals, about everything. It made the book a really good, good reading. So if you want to be entertained, if you want to, yeah, be entertained a lot, you have to read this. If you're expecting, if you're expecting 100% mountain adventure and this is not for you, I really want to read the book of the guy that really hiked this place just to see how like it is. This book is also about this experience, but it comes with a package of humor, with a package of um, plant knowledge and uh, forest knowledge, and like I could tell like this guy is a journalist because he knows how to write in order to captivate you, even if he doesn't do the trail, or he's like, screw the trail, I'm gonna just go with it. Brilliant book. I highly recommend it to you, and it made me appreciate the nature, the woods, the animals, the plants, and hopefully it will be a trail that will continue to be preserved in the exact way that it is, very raw, very unreachable by human hands. And unfortunately, history has shown us that the more people get their hands in the woods, the more those woods suffer. So for me, it was good to read the fact that this is a hard trail, and the National Park Service doesn't do much in order to make it more glamorous and more friendly. That's good for the woods, I think. Yeah. So this is pretty much it. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.